Pat, how are you? First of all, let me just inform our listeners that Pat and I sort of in the same boat. We're sitting in easy chairs watching these games because Pat had a terrible fall a couple of weeks ago and broke a couple of bones in his leg. And so, first of all, Pat, before we talk about anything else, how's the leg coming along?
Well, Don, good question. I'm doing much better. I fell down some stairs 6 weeks ago today and fractured the femur in my right leg. I don't recommend that to anybody, but the surgeons repaired it the next night, and for the last almost 6 weeks now, it's rehab,
Yeah.
and I'm getting a little bit better, and I'm getting out and about. I'm at a granddaughter's softball game tonight, and so it's important, I think, to get back in the swing of things. But little by little, I am feeling better and determined to get the use of my leg back.
Terrific. Of course, the owner of the Orlando Magic, the man that brought the Magic to Orlando, Florida, when he was general manager of the Philadelphia 76ers for so many years, decided to step out and develop his own team, and that's exactly what happened. And we give Pat and all his entire crew all the credit in the world. And when you look at the standings right now, Pat, you had told me last year we have a lot of young players that are going to improve. And I think you're right. I think they have improved this year. And quite a battle right now between Cleveland, the Knicks, and Orlando. Your thoughts, first of all, on your team? And
are finishing on a high note. And the community, the Greater Orlando area, is getting quite excited about this team and looking forward to a good playoff run. We've got 10 regular season games left and should finish well and then we'll wait and see what the playoffs hold.
Pat, there were two people in Orlando, Florida that had the vision. You were one of the two, and the other was the Cowboy. Built quite a complex there in Orlando, Florida. And you two guys saw what was going to happen. Now it's one of the best cities in America. And you've talked about it many, many times. We talked about the baseball situation. And is there any change in your baseball thinking right now?
Don, we're still plowing ahead. Baseball does want to expand eventually and add two teams. We don't know how that's going to play out, but we keep optimistic. The growth in Orlando is unbelievable. We just learned, Don, this week we just passed Denver, as the 16th largest media market. We passed Miami and Denver in the last year. 20,000 homes behind Minneapolis, St. Paul, and should catch them sometime this year. And then the next city on the list is Detroit. And so we're moving up. In the next few years, we're going to be up there around 14, 13. I think we're going to catch Tampa Bay eventually. The growth in Central Florida is just astounding. And we've become a major city, and I think a city that baseball has to really pay close attention to. There's so much to offer baseball, and we're doing everything we can to be ready when that time comes.
Well, you and Walt Disney had the vision. So, Roger, you're on with Pat Williams.
Pat, we were talking about the different NBA situations and about the Sixers, wanting to go to Chinatown, and the Phillies and the Phillies and the Flyers have formed a partnership to develop the South Philadelphia complex, with making it a destination. But I heard today that the Alexandria, Virginia, rejected the idea of moving the Wizards and the Capitals there. So they're going to remain in D.C. You and I and Don and Frank remember when it was a big deal to build and move into downtown D.C. from the Capitol Center in Landover, Maryland. And it just goes to show you, when you have inner city problems, all of a sudden things change. And I was just wondering what your thoughts are about that.
Well, it's a good point you make. But I think the Wizards and the hockey team belong in downtown Washington. And I'm following it closely. But to get new buildings built, the price of construction today, it's overwhelming, and it's not a casual thing. When we started on this baseball idea here, the ballpark estimate was about $1.2 billion. The last estimate we've gotten was $1.7 billion. And
wow.
In the next 3-4 years, I mean, heaven knows what it'll be. So the idea, and I just saw this story this week. I just saw this story this week about Nashville. The mayor of Nashville was asked about Major League Baseball coming to Nashville, and the mayor simply said, "You know anybody here wealthy enough to build a ballpark?" Meaning it doesn't sound like there's any public money up there. She said it twice. You know anybody wealthy enough to build a ballpark? So,
well, Las Vegas doesn't want the A's. That's what I read. And why wouldn't the A's come over and they could realign the setup of the divisions, in my opinion. But you know more about it than me.
Well, the A's, are the A's, and they go about things differently. We've got to see if they can get a ballpark built in Vegas.
Yeah.
That's still up in the air. I'll tell you what else is up in the air. The ballpark in St. Pete. The city council and all still has not approved the funding. I think that was a premature announcement that was made last fall, but they're still has to go before the council, and they have to vote on approving the funding, and we haven't. That doesn't come up till probably May. So that's far from finished in St. Pete. So there's a lot of stuff swirling, that's for sure, in the world of sports. And you guys haven't even gotten into the Ohtani thing, I'm sure.
Well, I was going to save that. I was going to save that till the next part, but I don't. Not just Ohtani. The whole gambling situation has blown out of control right now. I think, Pat, and I know you have a player that they're questioning about some of his endeavors of investment and so forth, about gambling with that, and it's to me, it's becoming more of a problem every single day. I know they're taking a lot of money in for it, but there are a lot of people out there that gamble, Pat, and I just don't see how they're going to solve the problem.
Well, Don, I guess it was 2018, the Supreme Court ruled in favor of gambling as a legal activity.
Right.
And the end result was, over these years, there's money to be made in getting their endorsements, and the major league teams, and the leagues responded to it, and here we are. But I think we all have to be concerned. Where does this all lead? Is it just part of life? And there are going to be casualties along the way. I understand fully. Our granddaughter just hit a line drive base hit into left center field.
All right.
Way to go, Nolan. Atta girl. Hit a screaming liner into left center. Attaboy.
How old is she, Pat?
She's in the ninth grade. And
good.
Started playing varsity softball as a 7th grader, and now is in the 9th grade, and looks like a very, very, very promising young softball player.
Great. Roger?
No, that's great. I'll tell you, Pat, I love the stories about youth sports, because I was just talking to my daughter earlier, lives up in North Central Pennsylvania, and my granddaughter played in 100 softball games last year. She's in 7th grade, but no more Little League this year, okay? Strictly travel and middle school. You know, because you just got to take a break. But I love to see that, and I'm involved locally here outside of Atlanta. So but you know, I envy you being there. There's nothing like being at a game to see kids play.
And kids who are baseball and softball kids. So we're seeing an awful lot of young players.
Pat, the one thing you just mentioned really comes to the fore, because just before you came out, we were talking about the stadium situation here. I thought those numbers that you gave were really amazing, because I know when we first started talking 3 years ago, and you had those initial numbers, then it jumped a couple of years ago to the second plateau and where you are now. And the city of Tampa, I mean, I just don't see where there's any possibility that they can come up with that kind of money, $175 billion to build a ballpark. I don't know where they can come up with.
Well, Don, they're talking about building a 30,000-seat ballpark, which would be by far the smallest in baseball. Ours would be more, like 45. And our projected numbers show that, you know, anything less than 45,000 financially, we can't make it. You know, it wouldn't work. And so we'll see how. In other words, I don't think with a new ballpark the Rays' strategy will be any different. You know, they would still be the same, operate the same way, and they may draw a little bit better initially, but it's still in the same location. It's still tough to get to, still not an ideal location, still not a big population center. So they're going to still have to operate the same way. So that's just an observation. But that vote's coming up in May, and we'll see how that is resolved. But you know, the county in St. Pete has a lot of issues. You know, the beach has to be repaired, and the Phillies over in Clearwater, who the county has taken care of since 1947, the Phillies are looking for a big swag of money to upgrade their minor league facilities, and the county's going to have to look after them. A lot of things going on in that county, and so stay tuned. We'll see how it all plays out.
Pat, you forgot
Roger?
that the Blue Jays are also looking for a new stadium. So Pinellas County is completely overrun with requests, and do not have the, as we spoke before, they don't have the ad valorem tax. They can't put another sales tax on, and they can't really, you know, St. Pete was always thought of as a retirement community, and it still is. Even though there's a lot of people moving in from California and New York that are much younger, but still there is not the tax base there to be able to support that kind of money.
Well, that's just from afar. That would be our observation as well. They do have some tourism, but it's not gigantic. We average over here about $30 million a month. You know, in tourist tax revenues, and that's generated this year by about 80 million visitors. That number is expected to jump appreciably next year, and so that gives us a chance to get a ballpark built. But if Pinellas County can't pull it off this spring, we're waiting. We'd love to have the Rays here. Love to have them.
Pat, let's get into your sport. Tell us a little bit about what you think the playoffs are going to, because now you got the play-in, then you got the regular playoffs. How do you see the playoffs running in the NBA?
Well, Don, there's no question. Boston had such a dominant season. You know, they're absolutely unbelievable. Milwaukee seems to be getting their thing together under Doc Rivers.
Right.
So those two teams, can play with everybody, and you don't want to see them in the playoffs until maybe the finals in the East. You don't want any part of them early on. Cleveland has had a terrific year, but are having some struggles. Miami is just not really having a typical Miami season. The sleeper in the whole thing are the Knicks. Brunson has turned into such a devastating offensive player, and
right.
They've got all these role players who step up and do amazing things. So I'm if I'm a playoff team, I would be very, very concerned about having to play the Knicks, particularly early in the playoffs. So it's going to be fascinating. Right now,
how about the Sixers, because their MVP hadn't really come back yet? How do you look at the Sixers and whether he's going to be healthy enough to play?
Well, that's a great question, Don. If he comes back and healthy, well, then they're a contender, no question. Without him, they're just an average team.
Right.
Not a poor team, but they're just an average team. With him, they're a threat to go to the finals. So, but we're not getting any real signals on how he's coming along. No word that I'm hearing, Don, about his condition and how he's responding. But
right.
Stay tuned. That's gonna be a big story here in the next several weeks, obviously.
Roger?
Yeah, Don, Frank just informed me that we need to go wrap this segment up at 8:00. So I just want to ask Pat, and then you can wrap it up. Pat, where exactly in Orlando will your proposed ballpark be?
There's a 35.5-acre plot. It's county land. And it's right next to Aquatica, the water park, the SeaWorld water park. It's right across the street, basically, from SeaWorld. The 528 runs right by it. I-4 runs right by it. South I Drive runs right by it. All the major intersections run right by it. It's an absolutely ideal location, and we're watching it very closely. It's raw land. There's nothing to look at that's very pretty right now. It's just raw land, but an ideal spot to build a Major League Baseball team, a ballpark. It would have to have a dome. With weather issues in Florida as they are, must have a dome. And but we're very, very excited about it. The reaction of people is solid. It's about 6 miles east of Disney, 6 miles west of Universal Studios, maybe a 12, 15-minute drive from downtown. And
wow.
We feel that it's a wonderful spot that the county pointed out to us years ago, and that's our plan. That's where the ballpark would be built.
Sounds like
Pat, we'll talk many times down the road a little bit, but at the same time, thank you very, very much for your time tonight. Best of luck to your granddaughter playing softball, and more importantly, keep that rehab going, will you?
John, thank you. I've got a session tomorrow, and stay in touch. I'll talk to you guys along the way.
Thanks, Don.
Take care.
God bless.
Thank you so much.